see if you're able to connect. Okay. Thank
Welcome.
You so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. I'm Dave Rascosi, Director of the Science and Engineering Department. I'm here to introduce Isha, who is currently in taking research methods with Catherine Phillips, who guided her through the process of her science fair project. So the school fair was conducted in February, and we select 12 projects to advance to the regional fair. At the regional fair, projects that place at the regional fair are then able to advance to the state fair. So Isha placed third at the regional fair, and that takes place in March. And then the state fair was conducted at MIT in May, and that's where she earned first place. So I'll turn it over to her and allow her to tell you what she did.
Yeah, so my name is Isha, and so my project this year was called TalkToMe, and it's an application that detects suicidal intention on social media through machine learning. So to truly understand the purpose of this project, we need to first go over the idea of suicide in our community. So suicide is a leading cause of death in numerous demographics, and in addition to this, it caused over 800,000 deaths worldwide every single year. So it's clearly a major issue that our community is faced with, so this project aims to help solve it. So moving on to my background research, this mainly once again revolved around the idea of suicidality. So one important thing I would like to highlight is that suicide is a spectrum. So there are 5 main levels of risk. This includes supportive, indicator, ideation, behavior, and attempt. And it's really important that we acknowledge and understand that suicide is a spectrum because the action that we should take is correspondent to the level of risk that is outputted by this spectrum. If these two don't correspond with one another, then oftentimes the situation can get a lot worse. So taking this in mind, social media completely disregards it. And we see this especially with large platforms such as Twitter, in which when you report someone as suicidal on Twitter, then what happens is that Twitter locks that person's account for a period of time until they delete that tweet. However, no matter where you are on the spectrum, that's extremely the wrong place and sort of action to take, because when you lock a person's account, you're telling them that this is no longer an outlet you can use to speak out. And especially at a time when someone is probably suicidal, that's not what you want to be telling them. In addition to this, in their mind, they're now thinking that when I reach out, there's going to be a negative impact. So the idea that social media is currently spreading about suicidality when they use their platform is simply detrimental to suicidal people at this point in time. So once again, this project aims to help solve that as well. So for my procedure, the first part of my project was creating machine learning models. So machine learning is the idea of a machine being able to, once you input in data, then based on that data, create patterns, etc. And therefore, when new data is inputted into it, create predictions based off of it. So I created 5 different machine learning models, and then I chose one machine learning model based on a bunch of different metrics that was the best machine learning model. Then I took that machine learning model and then implemented it into an iOS application that was then my final product. So my data analysis is related to choosing that best model out of the 5 models that I created. So each model represents a different mathematical algorithm. So the final model that I ended up choosing was something called a support vector machine model, and that is an algorithm that I ended up choosing because it had the highest accuracy with an accuracy of 92%. So the final product is an app, and here's a quick demo of it. So this is the application itself, and it's called TalkToMe. So in the first screen, you see just like a quick little disclaimer and also a text box. So the user can first off input whatever text they want directly into this text box. Or if they want to, they can also upload a screenshot. So for example, you can upload a screenshot of a tweet, and then you can press this convert to text button, and it'll convert it to text. And then you press continue, and then this is where the machine learning algorithm is working. So it is likely that this person is talking about suicide. If the machine learning algorithm thinks that the person is not talking about suicide based on what's inputted, it will say that. In addition to this, it also goes the extra level of not just determining whether the person is suicidal or not, but also determining the level of risk they currently are at. And that's with the risk form. So based on how you answer a series of questions, so for example, yes, no, no, a level of risk will be outputted. So in this case, it's a low medium risk, which is ideation. And then when you click more info and next steps, it'll tell you just what this means, how you can help, and it'll give you 2 options in this case. The first is how to act as a suicidal caregiver. Now, when I talk about acting as a suicidal caregiver, this means when you're talking to someone who is probably suicidal. Now, I created this page mainly because a lot of people are in scenarios where they need to talk to these suicidal people. However, they need to understand how to respond in a really educative, informative way that really makes sure that they're helping these people rather than hurting them. So these are a bunch of different scenarios that someone may be experiencing when they're talking to these type of people, and it also explains how to respond to them. And another option is also calling a suicidal hotline. And if you go back and answer the risk form in a different way now, let's say yes, yes, no, this is now medium risk, which is behavior. And if you click more info, next steps, now the actions change as well. So now the only option that's available is calling a suicidal hotline, since this is the only action that corresponds to this level of risk. Finally, if you were to go back and click yes, 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 this would be a high risk, which is attempt. And if you click more info, next steps, now the only option is calling 911 or emergency services. So yeah, that's the entire application. Thank you.
Wow. Comments, questions?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here, first of all, this is such a topic that I'm thinking about what I was doing in grade 10, and that was like learning choreograph to like Backstreet Boys. And you have just put together, this is amazing. What inspired you to choose this particular topic? I know that there's the background, but what for you drove you to choose this as your project?
Yeah, so this was mainly like a social and personal thing. So I've always really been interested in impacting the healthcare industry through computer science. And then so also recently, especially with the recent years, there's been a lot more awareness for mental health. But I feel like I haven't really seen a lot of computer science or artificial intelligence being used in the mental health realm to help create solutions. So this was definitely something I wanted to try out and sort of combine two topics that I really liked and was really relevant today's time.
Amazing.
I just wanted to comment. I love that you provided the options for people. Like if you have a friend that may be going through a situation, and then how you can talk to someone and the different kind of scenarios that you may be presented with. It's just, how did you come up with that and find all that information to kind of, rank these things and kind of come up with like a little blurb about how to respond?
Yeah, so this was mainly a lot through my background research. So there are a lot of good websites and sources out there, such as Suicide is Different and the Columbia Suicide Severity Risk Scale, that talk about how suicide is a spectrum, and they also really descriptively tell you how each level on the spectrum works and information about that. So I took that background research from different studies that have been conducted as well about these suicide risk scales, and also just how to act based on where you are on the risk scale.
Excellent.
Just, curious about the amount of time that this took you to put together from beginning to end, like from the time that you thought about the topic to the time that you presented it at the fair.
Yeah, so I first thought about this project last summer. So that summer block was, since I couldn't actually create implementation itself for this project because the science fair requires you to do it like starting September or October this school year. This summer I spent actually learning machine learning. So I worked under a professor, etc., and I learned the basics of machine learning. And based on what I learned over the summer, I was then able to implement this application. And the entire process took, like where I am currently, I'm still working on it, but where I am currently, I would say it took 1 semester long of school. So from like September to February was when I presented. And that's also because I take research methods, so the project kind of had to be done by then.
Great. Thank you.
A question, so you just mentioned you worked with a professor. Was that at a local college? Like, how did that?
Yeah, so that was through a online program. So that was, COVID was still going on a little
Okay.
bit back then. So yeah, that was through online.
Excellent. And one of the other things I was thinking of, the company I work for, we have mental health allies now. So it's a program anyone can sign up for, some training. And we do have social workers that we can talk to if somebody would come to us. But this app, and it would be a tool for anyone to use, and someone who may not have all of the background. So is that something you're thinking of, like the purpose of this tool going forward in a corporate setting, medical health setting? Is that what you're planning?
Yeah, so for the future of this application, right now it's not on the App Store, but I'm working towards publishing this on the App Store this summer. I'd also love to get a patent on this. And also, actually, through the science fair, they posted something on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever about like getting first in this project. And then a nonprofit reached out to me, and currently I'm working with that nonprofit. We're still in the beginning stages of it, but we're looking about how this application in specific can be used. They have volunteers, so it can, how they can train their volunteers with this application, and how volunteers can use this as a tool when they talk to people who may be suicidal.
Yeah, excellent, because it's that ready tool that you have right there for somebody. And my other question is, if you're at the state level, do you go on to a national level? Or,
Yeah, so there is international, which is ISEF, International Science and Engineering Fair, but the International Science and Engineering Fair depends on how you place in the regional level. So only if you get first, and I think if there you have to compete. Otherwise, also if you get second, then you can move on to ISEF.
okay, thank you. Stephanie?
Yeah, just really quick. So just to confirm I'm thrilled to hear. We're all super impressed. This is great. I mean, and it's so very relevant for our community, certainly, that bears repeating. But the hope then is for the end user for the app is somebody who sees something and thinks, this maybe is concerning, but helping them to figure out. And so is your hopeful user, I guess, do you think of it as peers on social media, or a parent who maybe sees something on a phone and doesn't know what to use it, or is there a teacher maybe who sees some things? Certainly schools get alerted often, and we're trying to figure out what to do about some things that might be concerning. Who's your hopeful target audience, if there's one?
So there's a lot of target audience, so if anyone pretty much can use this application. But when I was first building it, it was mainly targeted towards, like you said, like a friend or peer.
Okay.
That sees something that their friend may have said online, and they thought, oh, I'm a little worried about this, and then they use this to better communicate with their friend and get their friend help. But that too can also be used by the friend themselves. That's a little less common though, because usually suicidal people themselves don't want to reach out themselves. But in addition to that, I also learned that it can be used in the nonprofit setting with like volunteers, etc., that I'm currently doing. And then it can also be used in, I was thinking, like the clinical setting. So there's something called the Columbia Suicide Severity Risk Scale that I mentioned before, and it's currently being used in a clinical setting. And this is sort of like an automized tech version of that. So it also has potential in the clinical setting as well.
Very impressive. Dr. Sawyer?
I just want to thank Isha for this extraordinary work that she's done and congratulate her on the recognition she's received, obviously well-earned and deserved. And again, her teacher, Ms. Phillips, I believe you said, was your teacher in research methods. And it's a program that continues to provide students with really excellent ways to be mentored by one of our own faculty, obviously taught in terms of both their math and science classes. And certainly, while we have a tradition of recognizing first and grand prize winners here at the school committee level, Mr. Wiscosi communicated a long list of students who were recognized from the 12 who moved forward to regionals and certainly beyond that, and people who did very well at the state level with some really innovative projects. So we really appreciate that we have this opportunity for our students, and so glad that Isha took such great advantage of it as well. So congratulations. At this time, why don't we have Isha come up and shake the committee's hand and receive a certificate. How about a round of applause and recognition?